minute till broadcast. We are now streaming.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, August 10, 2023, here in Durham City Council chambers. We are here for the City Council's work session here on the first floor of City Hall. Welcome to you all who have joined us in person on this rainy day, and welcome to those who are joining us remotely as well. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor O'Neill.
I am here.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman. She is requesting an excused absence today. Councilmember Holsey-Hyman is also requesting an excused absence. Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for your consideration. I do have three motions for on excused absences. I know you probably received the emails from Dr. Holsey-Hyman and Councilwoman Freeman. I think Councilwoman Freeman is in Charlotte and is asked to be on a panel for tomorrow at a conference. And Dr. Holsey-Hyman had a work obligation today at NCCU, and I am also requesting an excused absence on Monday, September the 18th. I will be out of town, and so Mayor Pro Tem, I hope you will be able to preside at that meeting. And I would like to entertain that motion if we could do them all three at one time.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And that has been moved by Councilwoman Johnson and seconded by Councilwoman, Caballero. All those in favor, if you sign by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none. And Councilman Williams is now with us, so we are ready to take announcements by council. Some look to my right. All right, Councilwoman Caballero.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see folks. I don't know what's up with my mic. I just heard it doing some feedback. The subcommittee on the plastic bag ordinance met, I think, Councilmember Williams, like 2 weeks ago, maybe. We met, and there is consensus on the subcommittee to bring that item forward. So our request is if we could bring it up for discussion at our next August work session. And the Don't Waste Durham folks and the Duke Law folks would like to present again to council if folks are amenable. And then the goal would be to take up the ordinance later in the fall for an actual vote. And so what I'm looking for today is consensus around, are folks comfortable with them coming back at our subsequent work session? I unfortunately don't have the date in front of me. And then are folks comfortable with us as a council voting on the matter, I think sometime in September or October?
Any objections to that? Okay, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Caballero, and to our colleagues who are doing great work on that subcommittee. I just have a question. Is it their intention to represent what they've already presented to us, or is anything substantive difference, or just answer questions from us?
Thank you. I think there's two parts. They unfortunately got their original presentation was cut short, and so I think that was one of the reasons we ended up with that subcommittee, was to delve deeper into the issue. And then there is some expansion around the actual ordinance that they want to be able to present. So there's some changes to it as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. No objections.
Anybody else? Thumbs up, everybody? You have your consensus. Thank you.
And then I have one other announcement. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. Thank you. I also am requesting a conversation. It's been raised with residents a few times. I think several of us have probably gotten these emails around if we are going to do an infrastructure bond or not. And so I do feel like we probably at least need to close the loop on that conversation, whether it's yay or nay. And so my other request as a council member is that we take up that conversation. This is also just for staff purposes, because I think we might have to have a guided conversation on what our options are, but I do at least want to, we started it during budget season, and it didn't necessarily align with what we were doing then. So my second request is to, and I can come back with a date, or happy to follow up with you individually, but didn't see the point in moving that conversation forward if there isn't at least consensus on council to have that conversation.
I agree it's time, but what does everybody else think? Thumbs up on that? All right, we're rolling along.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those were my announcements and requests. Thanks to colleagues for indulging me, and look forward to the rest of our work session.
All right, thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem, you have anything?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, looking to my left, colleagues, you all have anything? Okay, look, I do have an announcement, and this comes in the form of a letter that came to me at 12:56 from one of our deputy city managers, Bo Ferguson, and I'm gonna read this letter. It's it's an email, but I do think this is a great announcement. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. I'm writing more in both my personal capacity and my professional one, hoping that you will be willing to invite the coach and players of the Southern Durham Little League All-Star team to receive recognition at a future council meeting for winning the NC State Championship this summer. My son was not on the team, but played during the regular season with many of the players and coaches who went on to win the state tournament and compete in the National Little League World Series. I'm so proud of this team and organization, not simply for their competitive success, but because the coaches and leaders model the principles of mentorship and serving as role models for young boys and girls across Durham. They emphasize character, leadership, and teamwork as the foundation for success. And it is clear that this model works so well for them. Importantly, the team was coached by one of our police officers, Dante Farrell, who balances countless hours of commitment to these young men against his professional services to our city as a police sergeant. This is the first time that a team from South Durham Little League has won the state championship in this age group, and it is a great accomplishment for the Bouy City. Please let me know if you will be willing to have them on Monday, September 18th, and I will work with the league and your staff to prepare a proclamation recognizing them for their accomplishments. Thank you for your consideration, and there's a nice post on the Durham Police Department website that shows parts of the team and our police sergeant, and we thank you, Deputy City Manager Ferguson, for allowing us to do that. And I know we can get thumbs up on recognizing them on the 18th, without a doubt. Thank you so much, everybody.
Madam Mayor, point of clarification?
Yes.
Ma'am, you won't be here on the 18th, and I know when I was a kid, it was a big deal to meet the mayor. So do you still want to go forward with that, or should we look at another date?
I had reached out to, I think, one of the coaches prior to them going down to Florida this weekend. I hadn't heard back from them by phone, but I'm willing to do whatever. I can go and meet them personally somewhere else. I definitely want it to be their time frame rather than mine. So I thank you for remembering that. But yeah, I would like to be here, but if I can't, I'll meet them somewhere else. So thank you so much. All right, everybody. Since we have no further announcements, we will turn to our priority items by our city manager, our city attorney, and city clerk.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Durham City Council. I have a couple of priority items for you today. The very first item is a happy announcement, and some of you have seen it already posted in different places, but I am pleased to welcome and announce the permanent appointment of our Director of Budget and Management Services Department, Christina Reardon. Christina is here with us today. Christina, you will recognize as the Assistant Director that took over the Budget and Management Services Department, leading that team during a very tragic time for our organization and for the community during last budget season. She has led that department and that body of work that we do in city government, not just putting the budget together, but the innovation components and the process improvement areas that come out of that department. One of the most leading some of the most innovative work that we do in city government. So I am very pleased as a Durham City Manager to introduce her formally today and ask her if she just wants to say anything or have any words she'd like to say to you all and to the community.
Thank you, City Manager. I just feel really honored to have been selected for this. I'm really excited about the job. I am a longtime Durham resident, and so I feel really honored to be able to serve the city that I really love and live in and work in every day. So I'm looking forward to working with you all on this next budget season as we go forward. Thank you.
And my last item is agenda item number 27, which is the Durham Comprehensive Plan 2023. The Durham County Board of Commissioners and the Durham City Council will be conducting this public hearing for agenda item number 27 on Thursday, August 31st, 2023 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers. That is all I have this afternoon.
Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Ms. Reardon. We are just so honored at your work so far in that very hard space, and you did a fantastic job. And so we're glad to know that you will be leading that effort from here on out. So thank you for all that you've done. Colleagues, you've heard our manager's priority item. I am ready to entertain a motion for its approval.
So moved. So moved. Sorry.
Councilman Wood, I think I heard it.
Yes.
It's been moved by Councilman Williams, seconded by Councilwoman Caballero. All those in favor, if you would sign by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, we now turn to City Attorney Kim Rayberg, and we're glad to see her back in her seat today and hope you had a wonderful, I think you were away at a conference or something, right?
I was, Madam Mayor. We had the municipal attorneys meeting down in Wilmington, and we had a great time. 6 of the 10 attorneys in the office were present, so that was exciting. Durham had great presence at that conference and even participated in a presentation, so it was good to be there. And then I went to see Pink in Washington, D.C.
Very
so,
good.
so it was a very fun weekend, and it's good to be back with you all. And the city attorney's office has no priority items today.
Thank you so much, Attorney Rayberg. We now turn to our city clerk to see if she has any priority items for us this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city clerk's office does not have any priority items today.
All righty. Well, we will now move to the reading of our entire agenda starting with the administrative consent items, and then we will begin with item number 1, the approval of city council minutes. Item 2 is a participatory budgeting steering committee appointments. Number 3, the Durham Historic Preservation Commission mayoral appointment. Item 4, the Durham City County Environmental Affairs Board appointment. 5, Citizens Advisory Committee appointment. Item 6, the Mayor's Council for Women appointment. Item 7 is the Durham Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission appointment. Item 8, boards, committees, commissions, and task force fiscal year 2022-2023 annual attendance reports. We turn to our departmental items. Item 9 is a contract agreement with El Centro Hispano to provide salary and operating support. Number 10 is a contract agreement with the Museum of Durham History to provide educational and cultural services. Item 11 is a contract with the Life Center of Durham, Inc. for the purchase of STEM equipment. Item 12 is the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, Airport Improvement Program Grant Offer 3-37-0056-062-2023, Grant 62. Item 13 is the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, Airport Improvement Program Grant Offer 3-37-0056-063-2023, Grant 63. Item 14 is the Interlocal Agreement with Durham County for joint funding of the Low Income Homeowners Relief Program, LIHRP. I do want to give our manager an opportunity just for a pause to talk about that particular program. County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to take a pause to announce this is actually the third season of this, but to give it a little bit more amplification that the Durham city government and the Durham county government in our adopted budgets include more than $1 million, including administration, pretty close to probably $1.5 million to provide grant support to eligible long-term residents to assist with their property tax bills. One of the changes in this interlocal that is in front of you is that the application period has been opened earlier than in previous cycles. So that application period opened on August the 1st. It is linked at the Durham County DSS site, but it can just be Googled as well, and you could find it that way. But we encourage all eligible residents to take advantage of that program. Any assistance that we can provide to our residents that are long-term, that may have a lower or moderate income in order to maintain stability in their housing, we're happy to amplify and make these resources available. So thank you for that brief opportunity, Mayor.
Thank you so much for the good work on that. And we look forward to helping our seniors in that regard. I now turn to item 15 is a construction contract with Eagle Solar and Light LLC for design and installation of photovoltaic electrical generation systems at Water Management Mist Lake Facility. Item 16 is a condemnation action to obtain 2 easements at 4000 Fayetteville Street, and that item will be pulled. So we have a speaker for that item. Item 17 is a construction services contract with Riggs Harrow Builders, Inc. for the Edison Johnson Recreation Center renovation project. Item 18, the athletic booking agent contract. Item 19, amendment number 2 to professional services contract with Ramey Kemp Associates for Woodcroft Parkway Extension, TIP number U-5823. Item 20, amendment number 4 for Falcon Engineering contract number 16451 for the construction material testing and special inspections of the Mist Lake facility expansion. Item 21, the interlocal agreement for the Western Intake Partnership Real Estate
Madam Mayor, I don't want to pull item 21, but in my read-through, I noticed that the authorization language said to authorize the mayor to execute the interlocal agreement. I think staff meant city manager. So just point that out. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 22 is amendment number 1 to the professional services contract with Hazen and Sawyer, PC, for the Williams Water Treatment Plant Basin Improvements Project. Item 23 is professional services contract with Rafiq Financial Consultants, Inc. for the Western Intake Partnership Governance Amendment number 1. Item 24 is proposed updates to connection, lift station review, and flow monitoring fees. For our presentations, item 25 is the Durham Comprehensive Plan 2023, and we will receive a presentation on that issue, on that matter. Item 26 is the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, simplifying codes for affordable development. Item 27 is the Durham Comprehensive Plan 2023, and you've already heard from our city manager that that public hearing will be conducted here in City Council chambers on Thursday, August the 31st, 2023 at 7 p.m. with both the Board of Commissioners and your City Council. Item 28 are citizen matters. We did have one person, Mr. Jesse Williams, who had signed up, but I believe it's my understanding that he's no longer going to speak, but we have a number of people here in the audience. Just as a point of clarification, the SCAD public hearing will actually be on at our next City Council meeting. What date is that? At 7 p.m. for the public hearing. However, as a citizen, if you are here this afternoon to speak up on that issue, you will be called within the context of the citizens' matters, which we're taking up like right now. I only have one pulled item, and that was item number 16, correct? That's correct. All right, thank you. So we will now move to our citizen items. I do believe we have a number of people speaking on issues this afternoon. The first person, Ms. Bouy, if you will come and address your matter and state your name within 3 minutes. That'll be followed by Mr. Chavis, who has a request to speak on SCAD as well as a citizen matter, so he will be given time appropriate to address his two concerns. That will be followed by Mr. Robert Chapman, who's here to speak on SCAD, as well as there are a number of folks who have signed up as well. Boots on the Ground, I believe, is the organization they are representing, and I believe we have one other speaker, Ms. Wagstaff, who signed up for to speak as a citizen on a public comment on the SCAD, but we will actually do it as a citizen matter. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem and other council.
Speak up a little louder.
Other councilmen, hello this evening, this afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have a concern, and I'm sure that it will be your concern. I've been here almost 70 years now, and W.D. Hill is my concern. I thank you for putting so much effort into making that recreation center what it should be, but it's not being utilized properly because of the surrounding what's happening on the Fayetteville Street corridor and the community. I went yesterday, and I was appalled at the drugs, the prostitution, the homelessness that is taking over W.D. Hill's area, and the city has put so much into W.D. Hill. We have children going to camp there, and this is not a good place for that environment for our children to walk into that environment, and their parents leaving them there daily, and when they come out, they're not able to use the facility, playing tennis, soccer, because of the drugs and the prostitution and the homelessness in that is trying to take over that area. So I do not come with a complaint, I come with a solution. It will be great if we would just if the city would just block off that area. I know they move from area to area, but our children are our first priority. And when the parents have to drop their children off and worry about what their children are being introduced to, I saw about a 10-year-old running drugs from one car to the other yesterday, and the drug dealers, they parked their cars in that lower parking lot, and it is not feasible to have that at our city park. We don't see it at Forest Hill, we don't see it at Walltown, we don't see it at Campus Hills. So I think it should be a priority to address the issue so our parents and our children will be safe. It's not a safe environment for our children. So I don't know how much it will cost to block off that the parking lot so they cannot bring the trash and their dealings at our city park. And I thank you. I will not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
speaking with us this afternoon. Mr. Chavis, you have 2 cards, one for Mr. Chavis for a citizen matter and 1 card for SCAD. So I ask that you would take 3 minutes apiece on each of your subjects, and if you just state your name.
My name is James Chavis. I understand the mayor giving me twice to do it all at one time, and I appreciate that offer. The first one is city matter, is dealing with the lead in the park. I'm setting up a meeting again with the staff, but I want you all to come too, because y'all need to hear from the citizens of Durham how this is affecting our community. I'm a longtime resident, so I know. But the new kids coming up, just like she just talked about, they don't know. Our schools not educating them. Some of our parents are not educating them. And I'm talking about in the low wealth area. And they don't know what they're going to get into. So I wish you would come out. I've set it up for August the 28th, 6 o'clock to 8 at Holton. And I'm looking for seeing some of y'all, because this is very important. Because when our kids in our neighborhood don't have nowhere to play and they don't have nowhere else to go, they're going to do exactly like she said. When she saw that 10-year-old child out there selling drugs, they're going to do the same. Because guess what? The swimming pool got closed. And guess what? Nobody from Park and Recreation went out over in that area and told the community folks in that low wealth area why was the swimming pool closed and some other alternative ways for them to go to. So this is what we're dealing with in our area, and we need y'all, and we need you quick. My next subject is that SCAG, and it says 26. I'm asking you to postpone that until the planning can come out and explain 26 to the citizens of Durham what is the changes and how it's going to affect or not affect us. We are just getting this today about this coming up here. And how quick notice is that? That's not quick enough. And then you're talking about coming and bringing it back up here again. That y'all are moving too fast without the planning department coming and explaining to the citizens. Because some of the citizens may like the changes if they really know and can understand what's going on. But when they can't get the right information, they may they're against it. And you all can help us get the right information to say yes or no. So what did you have to hide from? So please, put our planning department to work and get them out here talking to the people in the community to truly explain this SCAD matter like it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments this afternoon. We'll hear now from Mr. Robert Chapman, and it then will be followed by men and women, boots on the ground, and they will introduce themselves individually as they come. Mr. Chapman, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I want to thank the City Council for considering the simplifying codes for affordable development amendments, which were introduced last April, about 18 months ago. Over 100 public meetings have been held. On July 31st of this year, the staff released a detailed analysis of every single item. That followed a group of meetings that I attended and other members of the SCAD task force attended, along with 4 opponents of SCAD. This was suggested by the mayor, and I want to thank you very much for doing that. As a result of those discussions, which were very positive and constructive, 6 amendments have been made to the proposal, and those are listed in the planning department's analysis. We are very, very gratified that the staff, out of 131 changes, recommended 122 of those outright or recommended them with suggested evaluation of effectiveness and impacts as part of the UDO rewrite. So that's coming up, and people will be able to look at these changes and decide if they're worth continuing. There were 5 minor changes that the staff wanted to make. 3 of those were the same one, which was the size of accessory dwelling units, and I think the task force is very amenable to meeting staff on these points. One was about parking requirements, and then there were 2 items that were found to be redundant to existing provisions of the code. So again, thank you very much for suggesting that we have meetings to discuss compromise, and thank the staff for going through every single item and for endorsing 96% of them outright, and then the remainder with small changes, which I believe that are acceptable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your comments this afternoon. We're looking for Minister Rafiq. Come on, sir, if you would, and I don't want to slaughter your name. So if you state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. My name is Rafiq Zaidi. I'm the president of Men and Women with Boots on the Ground, Durham, North Carolina. I'm an 80-year-old resident. I reside at J.J. Henderson Towers, 807 South Duke Street. I'm here, as always, as an opposer to this SCAD, which some of us call scam. Jim Anthony, Luback, and you heard from Mr. Robert Bob Chapman, along with Steve Tarver, in a collective consortium of Tiffany Elder and others, real estate agents and developers, sat down and actively in concert, allegedly shaped the format for SCAD. I have some issues with that. Several red flags popped up initially. The first red flag was that SCAD agents told the citizens of Durham that Habitat for America was a co-sponsor of SCAD. We found that out to be a lie. Then there was an array of churches that they told us had also sat down with members of SCAD and was in partnership with their co-sponsorship. We found that out to be a lie. Those were just the beginning of the red flags. Then we found out that Aaron Luback wrote on February the 20th, 2023, 5 months today, in an email, he said, and I quote, "I know the votes are on council. Let me quote that again. I know that I got the votes, or we got the votes already on city council. It's just a matter of us getting before them. I have questions with that. We have heard that one council member had been accused and up on an investigation for so-called sitting down with somebody to format her campaign. I have questions about that. This is under investigation now, I understand. I want to know when the planning director, Cyril Young, or anyone else in the city planning department ever verified that SCAD in its sponsorship had a basis to step into the UDO mandate format application process and never put forth for pre-application under section 3.2.4 of the UDO. How can you get an application for SCAD and you never had no pre-application conference? Look it out.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time this afternoon. We now turn to, I believe, our only internet speaker that is signed up. That's Miss Jackie Wagstaff. Ms. Wagstaff, if you could hear me, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor.
All right, and we also have, I think, good afternoon, Ms. Wagstaff. I just want to acknowledge that we are seeing Donna Stainback hand raised as well. If you would like to speak during this session, please raise your hand so that we can make sure that we get to you this afternoon. Good afternoon, Ms. Wagstaff. We can hear you, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon. Mr. Rafiq kind of touched on a lot of what I have concerns about. Especially one of my biggest concerns is when you have one of the, I wouldn't call it the author, but one of the people involved in this whole SCAD conversation that brought this to the forefront said that he knows he has 4 votes on that council. Now, there are probably 4 individuals on that council that will deny that they've been a part of this conversation, but we in the community believe that this conversation took place long before it was brought to the public. Now, the issue that I have right now is that the Black community, which is representative of the Durham community on the affairs of Black people, have now asked and request that this diocese, these people on this diocese, consider delaying this conversation and giving them time and other people in the community an opportunity to get more information, understand, and make a decision, an informed decision. And I do know that at least 2 people on this diocese that were interviewed by the committee and were asked that same question, they declined to confirm that they would support that. So it leads me to believe that they're not going to support it today or Monday to delay this SCAD conversation. But there are so many problems with this SCAD and so many problems with the relationship of different members of this diocese. You know, you have a board member whose husband's name is on documents that have originally started out this conversation where they claim meetings were being held convened with churches and other people. So there are a lot of problems here, and there are a lot of concerns, and there are a lot of investigations that need to take place to investigate the relationship between the members of this diocese and the people that have originated this SCAD conversation. That's the investigation that needs to take place, not the investigation of a council member that came on the board naive, and now all of a sudden her whole life has been turned upside down because of that. The investigation should take place on how this SCAD developed, who these individuals, Jim Anthony, started this conversation off with, and that's where I feel like the crime has been committed. And for an individual with the SCAD to say that he knows he has 4 votes, he knows he has 4 votes, and that is problematic for the citizens of Durham. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have Ms. Stainback has her hand raised, followed by Katie Ross. You will both have 3 minutes apiece, beginning with Ms. Stainback. Ms. Stainback, if you will unmute, we should be able to hear you.
Good afternoon. I'm Donna Stainback, a Durham resident for 70 years now. I'm an opponent to the House Bill 562 sponsored by Zach Hawkins. It supersedes municipality and county control. We need to control at the local level. Next topic. I'm also an opponent for SCAD. I started evaluating it when it was out in the community and went to meetings at Club Boulevard. It did mention that it had to support humanity, and it put a lot of emphasis on that. It gives too much control to the developers, and the justification given is not in the best interest of affordable housing and the surrounding communities. It is not environmentally friendly. Third, I support the comp plan urban growth boundary as it is in the petition as it was in the petitions that we sent, and as it was stated in the January and June draft plans. I support putting the Kent Road back in the urban growth area. Next item, we are opposed to the June changes to the Durham City blasting permit application. It is not in the best interest of citizens that have been impacted or will be impacted. And this evaluation is based on extensive involvement with the citizens and the issues that they're going through, and work with the Durham City Fire Department. Thank you very much for hearing my input on these items.
Thank you so much for your comments this afternoon. Ms. Ross, you would have 3 minutes, ma'am. If you unmute, we should be able to hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see the unmute button until just now. So I will comment more, of course, in the actual SCAD hearing, but I believe that the the comprehensive plan should definitely be in place before you consider any more amendments, especially the developer-sponsored amendments. Recently, I have requested and gotten a list of all of the private citizen-initiated amendments. And so far, I could be wrong, maybe a staff member will correct me, but I haven't found one single one that wasn't sponsored, initiated. The applicant was not from the development community. I've also gone through I've studied the Uniform Development Code from the current version from its inception back around in 2004, 2006. It seems that almost every amendment that has been made, especially those private ones from the development community, have been directed to ease the restrictions, ease the regulations, and submerge development applications away from public participation and public comment. And that's why this by right has grown, so that the public doesn't even know about major developments. They're all administratively approved. So with all this in mind, I would certainly think that the council should postpone consideration of the SCAD amendment until after the final version of the comprehensive plan is in place, and make sure that any future amendments comply with that plan. So I will comment further when these are heard, but that is my current comment for today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this afternoon. I believe Ms. Ross was the last person that I have And our clerk is now verifying as a speaker. So we'll now turn to item number 16, which is our pulled item. And we have a speaker, Mr. Jerry McLean, here in the audience who would like to speak to us, sir, if you will come. And you will have 3 minutes to speak to us this afternoon. And that item is the condemnation action to obtain 2 easements at 4,000 Fayetteville Street. Mr. McLean.
I'm not going to ask you how you're doing today because I've been doing bad for 10 years dealing with this problem. My name is Jerry McLean. I live at 4,000 Fayetteville Street. I don't owe the city anything. The city has not purchased any property from me except for some bushes, okay? I was told by the city they would take my hedges down because they wanted to put a sidewalk in and then they could put the hedges back. They did not pay for any dirt. They know this. This was for 2013. The person that said that to me is sitting in this council room right now, okay? If you want to condemn my property, go ahead. I was prepared for you to condemn it completely. That's why I have not improved it. I will not improve that property for you to devalue it. You have denied it, delayed it, devalued it for 10 years. You cannot show me my property line. You've had 6 surveys in 4 years, the last 4 years, 6. You cannot show me my property line. I've had 10 vehicles on that property, 6 in the last 4 years. My front porch is missing from the car that hit it in November. I can't get a permit from the city. The city tells me we don't see a need for aluminum storage shed of that size on your property, so your permit application is denied. And that was the 4th denial. This is the city. I am sick of you people. Please take me to court. Please. That's the only justice I see. All minorities, color or gender, city council, Durham commission, same thing. And this is how you treat black people. Henderson Tower up here crying. JFK crying, 98-year-old lady got sewer in her bathtub. She's lucky to be able to climb in the bathtub. I'm 76. I have been dealing with this since 2013. 2013. I'm bad. I got $8,000 invested in fighting this. You offer me $14,000. I will be $6,000 in the hole. It cost me at least an estimate of $7,000 to put up a chain link fence. But you want me to pay it. And then I get fined $400 twice since September for not taking care of the curb that I don't own. Twice by neighborhood services. I get taxed $500 for a $17 fine in August for taxes not paid on property that you got 5 poles occupying, including your sidewalk is on my property. You even made a mistake on that. It's a HUD repossession. You told me my deed was wrong. I got a letter from HUD on Monday telling me my deed is correct. I got a letter from HUD telling me my property, my reverse mortgage is correct because it's insured by HUD. You got a city attorney that came on my property, very biased from the get-go, and from that point on, it went downhill. You sent a white man onto my property telling me, I'm the city attorney, and I need you to give my boy a break.
All right.
My boy.
Thank you so much, Mr. McLean, for your comments.
All of signed black skeletons hanging in the street. 16 black skeletons.
All right, we will now turn to our item number 25 is a presentation from the Durham Comprehensive Plan. 30 minutes has been allocated to that, and we will turn it over to Ms. Seibel, I believe.
Good afternoon. All right, my name is Kayla Seibel, Senior Planner with the Durham City County Planning Department. I am here today to give the presentation on the Durham Comprehensive Plan, and I am joined today by my team members to help answer any questions at the end. So we are here today as we approach the culmination of 4 years of collaborative work focusing on developing a new comprehensive plan that centers community voices and equity for a presentation and discussion opportunity before the final public hearing on August 31st. After that public hearing, we anticipate returning with a final version of the comprehensive plan for adoption in October. We are tentatively scheduled for the October 9th County Commissioners meeting and the October 16th Council meeting. Before we get into the details of the plan, our team would like to acknowledge and thank the many individuals and organizations that have worked alongside us to develop and improve this plan to help it truly reflect the needs and priorities of this community. We have worked hard to build these relationships and to rebuild trust through this work and could not have done it without the willingness from community members and staff who are willing to partner in this work. So the labor of creating this plan has been shared by so many. We have listed some of the major partners on the slide, and additional thanks and acknowledgements are included on the last page of the plan. Thank you to everyone who has helped us get to this point. Very briefly, we'll go over the goals of this meeting, overview of the plan, explain the Planning Commission recommendation, and go into details of the map areas where decisions are still needed before the final plan is adopted. Our goal here is to make sure everyone has the same overview and the same information about the remaining decision points. We also want to hear specific feedback from the City Council on potential changes to the urban growth boundary. As a city and county plan, this is one of the most important growth management decisions the city and county to come to agreement on. So how the plan is different from the last is summarized here on the slide, and we've shown this at many of your meetings, but in short, we have tried to balance growing smartly from within our urban footprint and aligning urban expansion more closely with infrastructure planning. We've tried to focus on the highest priorities we heard from residents around access to housing, safe transportation options, and community sustainability and resiliency. And we've tried to work towards more equitable outcomes throughout the plan. The Planning Commission recommendation and edits are shown on this slide. I will summarize them so you don't have to read it all here. So after public hearings and discussions at 5 different Planning Commission meetings, the Planning Commission voted unanimously on June 13th to recommend approval of the new comprehensive plan as recommended by staff with one edit they've proposed. Their recommendation included a request to expand language in this policy 165 shown here. So in summary, this edit addresses how decisions on changes to the place type map are made. This revised policy calls to consider whether properties were previously within the suburban development tier and that any changes to intensity of place types should be furthering affordable housing production, environmental goals, and approaches to equitable engagement and outcomes. So this edit came after all of that discussion and straw polls that we'll mention later. But because there wasn't clear consensus on the map areas prior to June 13th, this edit was suggested to go alongside staff's recommendations. This hopefully will make more sense as we discuss each map in a moment. So the main decision point we are left with concerns the urban growth boundary. The proposed urban growth boundary is a line beyond which the city should not extend city services, and particularly important for land use development, should not extend water and sewer service beyond this line. So in the old plan, this line was called the suburban tier, and in the new plan, it's called the urban growth boundary. So we've had this line in existence before now, and with the new plan, we had the opportunity to look at this line more closely and see where we can make some changes. Staff has proposed to reduce the urban growth boundary compared to the existing suburban tier by about 10.8 square miles, due to infrastructure or environmental constraints in specific areas. So as we worked through the Planning Commission public hearing process, 6 areas remain to reach consensus on. And so for those who have been following these discussions very closely, there are two areas, the Snow Hill Road area and Arrowhead area. Those are places where Planning Commission and the Joint City-County Planning Committee seem to agree with staff's recommendations that those remain outside of the urban growth boundary. So they're not reflected in the discussion points here, but they are shown in attachment B on the place type map. So we'll walk through each of these areas in a moment. Creating the map and the growth management strategy for the plan involved considering what residents said they wanted to see in their community and how they wanted to move around Durham and how they would like environmentally sensitive lands to be protected, concerns about strain on existing infrastructure, and of course the need for more housing, housing types, and housing affordability. So the comprehensive plan not only recommends these areas for development, which is represented by that urban growth boundary and future growth areas, but also types of development and intensities that start to get at those other community values. Those characteristics of development are shown in the form of place types, which give us information about housing types, mobility, environmental concerns, infrastructure needs to consider in development proposals. The place type map does, as a whole, anticipate more units and a greater mix of uses where possible throughout the urban or newly urbanizing areas within the urban growth boundary. So given that we're recommending removing a little under 11 square miles from significant development potential, again, for these environmental, water, sewer, or fire reasons, that has brought up questions about how this would impact the supply of future housing units. So the Triangle J Council of Governments estimates that by 2050, Durham will need an additional 60,000 housing units to accommodate expected population growth. Using our best estimates, we believe that even with those reductions in the urban growth boundary, that this plan accommodates 143,000 more housing units at full build-out. This outcome depends on a few things: implementing the comprehensive plan, which happens incrementally, updating the zoning map to reflect those place types, and for the housing market to respond and build what we've set aside land for. So we believe that this plan provides a safety net in terms of number of needed housing units to allow for unforeseen circumstances such as changes in the housing market or more folks moving here than we expected. There's more information in attachment G, page 3. This lists the different place types and the breakdown of what we can anticipate for possible densities of those. We can come back to this at the end if there are more questions about these numbers. So the summary of changes related to the map, looking county-wide, the parcels shown in blue are the parcels that are currently within our suburban tier under the old plan, but which staff are recommending to be removed from the urban growth boundary in the new plan. Staff heard from a number of property owners who requested their properties be added back into our proposal. That's how we ended up with these areas for discussion. One of those areas is different in that it's a change to the future growth area. That is a staff-supported change, and this is the southeast future growth area we'll describe in more detail later. The 5 other areas that are changes to the urban growth boundary are circled on the map in red. So we'd like to hear guidance on whether the map should change in these areas. As we go through these, if there's information we can bring to your joint public hearing that would be helpful for a final decision, we're happy to do that. Okay, just jumping into our first map area. So the first example just may take a little bit longer to ask for folks to get oriented to looking at this map, but there will be a pattern as we show a context map, the staff recommendation, and a potential change. So first, this is a larger view of the county for context. Then we'll show zoomed in side by side. Our first map is Stagville, Old Oxford Road area towards the northeast near Trayburn. These properties are all part of the Trayburn Master Plan, parts of which date back to the mid-1980s and are currently in the suburban tier. Zooming in, on the left side is staff's recommendation from our January draft, the black and white outline. Let me see if I have the right here. You can see this black and white outline that circles these very large areas right here. Those are the parcels in question. These have place types designated as rural and agricultural reserve, shown in green. So we recommended removing these properties from the urban growth boundary in our proposal because of sewer limitations and because there is not currently adequate fire coverage out here right now. In addition, the majority of the property on the east side, Old Oxford Road, is in the Falls Lake critical area, and that's that blue line that's going through the middle of these properties here. So after we shared this draft in January, we heard from representatives of the property owner speak in favor of bringing these properties back into the UGB. Staff also heard from residents concerned about that FJA critical watershed protection overlay and concerns about this area developing. So Planning Commission took a poll on this issue, and 4 members were in favor of keeping our January draft on the left, and 7 members were in favor of changing the map to include these properties into the urban growth boundary. So if these properties are added back into the UGB, staff would recommend a mixed-use neighborhood place type, shown in purple, and designating this area as a future growth area based on needed sewer and fire service out here for future development. Okay, jumping into our next area. We can go back to any of these. This is the Farrington Mill Road area towards the south. You can see that circled on the county map here. These properties are currently in suburban tier, and there's an active zoning and annexation request called Sheffield Farms, which was submitted after we released this draft. Zooming in, so on the left side, it's a bit clearer here. You can see that black and white outline for the areas in question. You'll see staff's recommendation that these properties are outside of the urban growth boundary and designated as rural and agricultural reserve, shown in green, and recreation and open space, shown in that lighter green. We recommended removing these properties because of the complexity of serving this area with city sewer. The topography is in this area is such that any sewer extensions would require pumping sewage uphill at multiple locations through existing city lift stations, several of which are at capacity with no upgrades planned. So after we shared this draft in January, we heard from property owners asking to be added back in, and staff also heard from residents concerned about development happening here. Planning Commission looked at this. They took a poll. 8 members were in favor of keeping these properties outside the urban growth boundary, and 3 were in favor of changing the map. So if these properties were added back in, staff would recommend a mixed-use neighborhood or mixed residential neighborhood place types, and designating this area as a future growth area to account for those sewer service limitations and flag that as an issue. Okay, our third area, Patterson Road. You can see circled on the map here. So zooming in, on the left side, you see our recommendation from January. Again, rural and agricultural reserve place type here in the green. We recommended removing these properties because a new sewer lift station would need to be constructed to serve this area with city sewer. However, due to the size and limited number of properties, it could be possible that a lift station could be constructed by a private developer to serve this entire area without city participation. But staff heard from property owners wanting to be added back in, and also heard from residents concerned about these properties being added back to the urban growth boundary. We received a petition from over 450 residents who would like to see the Patterson Road properties remain outside of the urban growth boundary, so that original staff recommendation. Planning Commission looked at this, took a poll. 6 members were in favor of keeping these properties outside the UGB, and 5 were in favor of changing it, so a 6-to-5 split there. If these properties are added back in, we'd recommend a mixed-use neighborhood and a mixed residential neighborhood place types shown in the purple and brown. Okay, our fourth area, Cheek Road, Redwood Road. You can see circled on the map here. Zooming in, on the left side, staff's recommendation is that these areas in this black and white outline are rural and agricultural reserve, shown in green, and outside of the urban growth boundary. When we looked at this, we recommended removing these properties because a new sewer lift station would need to be built for this area. So because of the large size and number of properties in this basin, a privately built lift station designed to be built and serve this area, we don't think is likely. So in addition, city sewer in this area would most likely be pumped to an existing city lift station. It's already at capacity, and same with the same issue with the future development and fire coverage. Again, staff heard from property owners wanting to be added back in. Staff heard from residents concerned with that request, including receiving the same petition that pointed to this Cheek and Redwood Road as residents wanting to have this remain outside the urban growth boundary. Planning Commission took a poll. 5 members were in favor of keeping these properties outside the UGB, so that original staff recommendation. 6 were in favor of changing the map, so another 5 to 6 split here. So if added back in, we'd recommend a mixture of established residential place types and mixed-use neighborhood place types, and calling this a future growth area based on that sewer and fire service limitations to flag that for future development. Okay. Our next area, Hamlin Road. You can see here circled on the county map. Sorry about that. Zooming in, these properties are currently in the suburban tier, and this request came in a little bit later after all the other ones were discussed at Planning Commission, but they did have a chance to look at this at their June 13th meeting. These properties are at 2503 and 2523 Hamlin Road, and are in the Falls Lake District A, which is the critical area of the watershed overlay. So that's this blue line and this blue marking here. The FJA regulations would limit development on the property to 1-acre lots with 6 to 9% impervious surface, depending on the distance from Falls Lake. When the Planning Commission looked at this, they took a poll. 4 members were in favor of keeping these properties outside the UGB, that original staff recommendation, and 8 were in favor of changing the map. So if added back in, staff recommend a mixed residential neighborhood, that brown color there, and call this area a future growth area for, again, those environmental concerns out here. Okay, our last area, this has to do with the southeast future growth area. It's a little different than what we've discussed. This is not changing that bigger UGB line, but instead is it just a change to that future growth area that we already identified in the plan. Future growth areas, again, just as a reminder, they're places that could see development activity in the near future. They're generally founded on the fringes of the city limits, and they're shown with this red hatching and in the plan. They're always within the urban growth boundary, and we've already outlined place types to anticipate that new development out there. But all the future growth areas have needs, critical infrastructure needs like water, sewer, fire service to serve new development. So we went ahead and flagged that as part of the future growth areas. So zooming in, the staff recommendation so our current staff recommendation is shown on the right here, is to remove this northwest portion here, kind of outlining it with my mouse. In the January draft, the entire east of Kemp Road and Virgil Road was included based on conversations about fire surface limitations, but since that time, the fire department determined that this area, this northwestern area, could be served currently without adding another station. So because of that information, we are recommending to make that change to remove this northwestern portion from the future growth area. When Planning Commission looked at this issue, 2 were in favor of keeping that first recommendation we had in January, and 8 were in favor of the staff recommended change to remove that northeastern portion. 1 member abstained from the discussion. Okay, so this is the last of the map decisions. I mentioned before that after Planning Commission talked about all these areas and not a whole lot of consensus in those polls for changes, they voted to recommend approval of staff's recommendations, generally the January draft with some staff edits, and that change to policy 165 that I showed earlier that we can look at again if that's more helpful. So with that, you've heard an overview. We'd love to hear any specific feedback from you all on any of those potential changes. As a city and county plan, again, this is one of the most important growth management decisions for the city and county to come to an agreement on about those potential edits before the plan is adopted. So with that, staff is here to answer any questions.
Thank you, job well done. I'll turn it over to colleagues for questions. Looking to my right, left first. Looking to my right. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know who I should be. Is she coming? Okay. I was like, ah.
Member Caballero, if you just ask your question, we'll pick the best person. For
Okay, thank you. I was like, oh, I don't know who I'm supposed to be asking. Thank you for the presentation. These were the same cases that we saw at JCCPC, right? I'm not having like weird Groundhog Day. Okay, all right. I was having some.
You are having a weird Groundhog Day.
I mean,
because
yes,
they are
I guess
exactly
I am.
the same.
And I honestly can't, I mean, I remember we had really robust, great discussion. I should just go back and, well, we don't videotape that one. But can you refresh our memories? Because that was in June, please. Because I feel like in many cases we kind of went with what Planning Commission had already done. I think there was a couple that maybe we didn't. So I would love to, and it doesn't have to be now. I would love to have that information. And then when I go, my understanding, and I brought this up at JCCPC just a couple days ago, was that all of this is, that this comp plan in general is not supposed to be like a static document. It's supposed to be a responsive, iterative document. Because we've had many robust conversations at JCCPC about some of my concerns with the urban growth boundary. While I completely understand it, wanting to really ensure that we don't take too much land out that then, really limits our ability, really not ours, but in the future to have to make different choices. And it's been stated that there's going to be, I thought, biannual analysis on that, and that we would get kind of updates to ensure that we are not messing with, our ability to have good well, this is all tricky developable land, which is why we're having these conversations, but that we have choices in the future, that we're not tying future decision makers' hands.
Yes. So there is, one of the policies directs the planning department to do a biannual assessment. And as I mentioned several times, this might be Groundhog Day for you too, council member, but we plan on it to be more robust than what we did with the last comprehensive plan, where we just had an annual update to just mostly just to make sure the city and county plans were aligned. So we have a list of things that we plan on presenting to the city council and the county commission on the biannual basis. And then one thing we discussed today, because you've been very consistent about bringing this issue up, is that we could add in the policy, is it 162? 164? Whatever policy that has the biannual review in it, which may be 162 or 164, we would specifically add a review of the urban growth boundary and the adequacy of housing production or something like that, so that we can make it clear that we are going to do that, rather than just believing me when I say we're going to do it.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. I've been also really clear, and for you all, it's repetitive, so I hear you loud and clear. But for the public who isn't in JCCP meetings, it's not repetitive, so I'm just using this opportunity. We have a great neighbor who had put in an urban growth boundary many, many decades ago now, but then did not do the densification that was needed inside their growth boundary, which is actually, in my opinion, really limited their opportunity to build housing. And that has actually had repercussions for Durham. So I don't want to be that neighbor. So I hear you all loud and clear. Thank you for saying there's going to be a clear policy that we can reference, that future decision makers can reference, that residents can reference. That's really important to me. I look forward to reviewing these cases again with the added layer of what we said in JCCPC, because that's important for me. We have been getting a few property owners reaching out to us, so I hear that concern loud and clear. But I also hear the other residents, not just those property owners. So that my colleagues know, I really appreciate that last staff recommendation. It makes sense to me. I know the fire fire service ability was a real big question, so I have no problem with that one. It didn't seem like Planning Commission had a problem with that one. That's pretty straightforward. I still have questions on the other ones that I'm going to have to probably bother y'all now between now and the 31st, so asking for patience ahead of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Caballero. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for a great presentation. We're approaching a really important threshold. We've been living with this for a couple of years now, 3.5 years. I want to thank Councilmember Caballero for alluding to the work that's going on in the JCCPC. So I've certainly been living with it as well for a few years. I do want to kind of manage expectations for the people of our city. This is a plan. This is a comprehensive plan. It does not have the force of law behind it. It is a value statement. It is aspirational. We have a plan in place right now from 2005 that's operable, and we're taking votes, and sometimes we do things that are reconcilable with it, and some things we deviate because it was a snapshot when it was developed and things have changed. So I do want to say that, you know, decision makers on the next council and councils after this, I hopefully will look at this plan and govern themselves accordingly, but as conditions change in their time, they'll have to govern accordingly. With that said, I do have a question about Policy 165. I also want to say, you know, to the folk of the city, if we say we will not expand our city beyond this line, we are now going to get thicker and higher. That's just inevitable. You can't have it both. If you're going to stop sprawl, then height becomes inevitable. And more denser neighborhoods. And I want to, you know, as we prepare to talk about things like SCAD and other things, and I haven't said anything publicly because I want to do this in a public hearing, I want us to remember that a denser urban environment and a higher urban environment it has implications for gentrification. It has implications for parking and how we now deal with where we're going to put our cars. It has implications for all these things we're talking about. So I want to just remind our folks that as we make our city more compact, I grew up in an urban environment, a very crowded urban environment, and it looks very different, it sounds very different, it feels very different, and we're going to have to do different things. So I just want to put that out there. Finally, on Policy 165, the recommendation of approval with edits to Policy 165, number one, what it says, Policy 165, amendments to the place type map, including the UGB and FGAs, should only be permitted when the proposal demonstrates that, number one, adequate public utilities, emergency services, transportation services, and public schools are available. I just want to, how are we going to operationalize adequate? Because we've had many debates in here where professionals will say we have the capacity, Searles isn't at capacity. Folks just don't believe you. They just say, no, it's not. So when we say adequate as a decision maker, you know, I need to be able to operationalize that and actually turn that into something that I can cast votes on and make decisions on. So could you say a little bit about who's going to be the referee for adequacy?
So we as the city and county staff, we're city and county staff, but most of us are city staff in this room. The fire department has response times and the police department has their levels of service. The city departments, when you have to, just like when you make annexation decisions now, will provide an analysis of can we serve it or what would it take to serve this. And so we'll continue with the city manager's guidance, the best advice we can. Right. But ultimately, the decision on whether it's adequate or not falls on the seven of you.
Right. Thank you for saying, and I'll put a fine point here, because when you tell us it's adequate and we vote based upon that, and folks get mad at us and say, no, it's not adequate because I'm in traffic or because whatever, we're still going to have, this comprehensive plan is not going to stop those kind of fights. We're still going to have those tension points. We're still going to have those same debates with this wonderful, beautiful document. It is beautiful, an aspirational document, but I just want to manage expectations that the day after we pass this and start voting on new developments, we're still going to be having some of the same discussions, and rightfully so. But I look forward to it. That's why we volunteered for this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I yield back.
All right. Okay, everybody. Just as a reminder, the Durham County Board of Commissioners and City Council will be conducting a public hearing on Thursday, August 31st, 2023, here at 7 p.m. on the Durham comprehensive plan. We now turn to our clerk for our boards and commissions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, I've got the listing of nominations. I'll start with Historic Preservation Commission. The mayoral appointment is Faye J. Calhoun. Durham City County Environmental Affairs Board appointment is Miran Bahima. Mayor's Council for Women appointment, these are all nominations. For the category of Cultural, Recreation, Fine Arts sector is Sherry Christensen. Durham Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission appointment for the category of Recreation, Urban Trails, and Greenways is Marissa Hartzler. The Citizen Advisory Committee appointment nomination is Matthew Muntean. And due to Mr. Muntean being the nomination for the Citizen Advisory Committee, we have an undercount of Christopher Rhodes for the at-large position on participatory budgeting, and I wanted to ask if Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and Councilmember Williams would like to shift their votes from.
Madam Clerk, did you say an undercount?
Yes, we didn't have enough votes for Mr. Rhodes under the PB because it appeared that the vote had been split between the CAC and the participatory budgeting. Neither you, Mayor Pro Tem, nor Councilmember Williams had voted for the second choice under participatory budgeting because Mr. Rhodes had applied for both PB and the CAC.
Okay, so what are you asking me to do now?
What I'm asking is if you would shift your vote from Mr. Rhodes under PB, Mr. Rhodes under CAC over to Mr. Rhodes under PB. So he would be nominated to the PB at-large position.
Got you. Okay, yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Would you like to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you both do that?
No, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
So the nominations for PB Steering Committee at large would be Christopher Rhodes and Lauren Lee P. Shule. And then the youth position nomination is Asa Bourne-Garand. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you so much to our city clerk. I'll now turn to our city manager to begin to settle our agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For your city council agenda, we have for consent items 1 through 24 and GBA public hearing, item 26. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm ready to entertain a motion to settle our agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilman Williams, seconded by Councilwoman Caballero. All those in favor, if you sign by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none. Okay, let's just sit here for a few minutes because we have savored this moment as a council. We have finished at 2:21, a record time for us. Bull City, strong. We are hereby adjourned. Great work, colleagues, because you know we're all running to do the next thing. All right, thanks, everybody. Great meeting.